For this video, I'm going to be answering as many YouTube comments as physically possible. This is going to be an ongoing series in which I'm answering as many as I can. So if you guys have a question, just pop it in any of my YouTube videos. It'll come up at the top of the YouTube Studios comment section, and then I can get around to answering it like in one of these videos. Now I'm going to be answering the questions while working on this Absolute Carnage Symbiote of Vengeance. I'm going to be talking about the Symbiote of Vengeance and the wet blending process, but also answering as many comments as physically possible. So for Absolute Carnage here, we're applying that red that I just showed, and we're just putting it down quite wet. You know, we got the wet palette on the left there that I keep dipping into. And essentially you want to keep the paint flowing. And then eventually what you'll do is you'll take a dark color and you'll essentially layer it up very, very slowly and kind of blur the two colors in together. And when we eventually get to that process, I'll talk about it a little bit more. But for now, the first comment. Now forgive me, I'm going to absolutely butcher these usernames. So 700 would like to know if there is a Spidey shelf tour. Yes, definitely coming soon. So I have a Spider-Man video that I've been planning for a very, very long time. And it's essentially all the Storm Collectibles Spider-Man that I've created so far. Now, when I released them on Instagram, they came out in waves of 4. This time round, I would like to either do a video of them as a wave of 4 and have 4 in a video, or have the entire collection as one massive video with me going through the character statistics, the character's background, story, the custom, the articulation, what went into it. I'm not quite sure yet. It's a very work in progress video at the moment, but it is coming. A shelf tour is available very soon. Now back to the wet blending. You may have noticed I've added a black. This is a simple Citadel black, and I've added it to the wet red. And all I'm doing is quickly pushing the two colors together. Now, this essentially makes a gradient that looks very similar to airbrushing, but you can definitely tell it's hand painted and it's been wet blended. Now, all I'm essentially doing is pushing the red into the brown and the black into the brown, and then mixing the two with the red and the black, and I'm doing it so quickly that it makes a gradient. So we're blurring the colors together, and we're using lots of water, because if you don't use lots of water you can get a very undesirable effect. We're going to make the knees, because I didn't want to paint the knees red. I wanted the knees to be black, gradient into the thigh, which is going to be a red, a very vibrant red, and then into the black upper legs there, into the crotch area, and it's all going to look very smooth. We're not going to have any kind of inconsistencies in the paint applications or any streaking or line marks. So again, keep the paint fast and loose and use a lot of water. So from Hell Noodle, a Sabretooth custom on a movie Venom mold with the height adjustments would be sick. So one thing that I've been trying to do a lot is to kind of move away from movie Venom. Movie Venom is essentially a mold that I have milked and used over and over and over and over again. Sabretooth was just announced by Hasbro, and thankfully I have the Sabretooth mold and a recipe ready to go, just waiting for some decent Sabretooth parts. So this just kind of perfectly fell in line. Going forward, everything I do for my own personal collection, creating customs, is on a Storm Collectibles. I'm moving away from Legends, they are just too easy. I use them mostly for commission-based work. We're on the other leg here and we're about to apply some Citadel Black. Now it's very watered down. Again, we're using a wet palette. I highly recommend a wet palette if you're into the high detail stuff. When it comes to paint applications, this allows you to get very smooth, nice results. And mixing the black with the red and water and being very gentle and pushing the paint around, that's how we get the wet blended look. I do this wet blending on special occasions. It could be in eyes. I really like to have a white to blue gradient, or if it's toxin, an orange to red. You can get that with the Venom 2099, which I recently did on Monster Venom. there's lots of different ways of going about the wet blending and how you utilize it. So Toyota here is saying, what is the name of the green material? So if you've watched any one of my YouTube videos, the green material is green stuff. That's its actual name, green stuff. And I use it for basically everything. It is a 2-part epoxy that essentially dries flexible. It's like plastic. It's ever so strange. It's sticky. It's hard to work with, but eventually you get used to working with it. It's kind of like a hard chewing gum. It's ever so strange, but it's probably the best stuff you can use for customs in terms of sculpting, just because of its durability. If you drop some, it's not going to break. It's not like Aves or Milliput. Even though they have their own benefits, green stuff. I get this question all the time, and this is probably the last time I'm going to answer it. So Drake here would like to know what base bodies I use for the Spideys. So the Spideys he's referring to are the Storm Collectible Spideys. They're for my personal collection. The base bodies used are mostly Storm Collectibles, but that's the core of it. Without going into too much detail, they are fused with basically everything. You name the toy brand, it's probably incorporated in one of the Spideys at some point, but I'll go through all that at a later date. Also, if you'd like to see all the base bodies, the recipes, everything, it's all on Patreon. There is no smoke and mirrors. It's laid out perfectly for you. Everything that I use, it's all there. So Lewis would like to know, do you use wire or toothpicks under the sculpt? No. So I used to back in the day. I used to use toothpicks for the teeth and wire armature here and there. These days I still use the wire as a very strong base if it has parts that are kind of poking out. For example, on this you'll see that it has spikes up the arms, the forearms, so I'd essentially drill in and add the wire in there nice and hardy and then sculpt over it. That's very rare. It just depends on the situation and how durable you want that sculpt. And then for the head sculpts, in terms of the teeth, nowadays I just basically sculpt the whole thing from scratch in about 30 minutes. You know, in one sitting I just knock it out. That's basically what happens when you have 20 plus years of experience working with these products and customizing action figures. It used to take me quite a long time, but these days everything's done very quickly. Now we're on the knees on this custom, and they are black joints, and again I wanted the joints to be black. The way I'm working with this Citadel paint is it's ultra wet, so it's like a very thin layer of paint, and we're just slowly building it up. It's all about drying time here. We need that paint to be as thin as possible so that it doesn't interfere with any of the joints. You know, you don't want to have paint chipping off or anything like that. So we're just slowly layering it up, adding tons of water and just going with the dry time. We're trying to get it all nice and smooth to get that wet blended airbrush look. Okay, so Cool here wants to know, can I buy this? Also, how much is it to buy? Your Venomized T-Rex or Ultimate Venom. So basically, I put those videos out as almost like a catalog, right? So you can see the product, how it's created, and then essentially hit me up on Instagram and ask me for a commission of those products. I also can do anything in terms of being requested what commission you'd like to own. Now, don't get me wrong, I can be incredibly selective with what I take on, because at the end of the day it has to come down to time. If something takes a long time to create, then it costs a lot of money to make. So there's a lot of factors involved with commissions, and I may have to do like an entire video on it later on. But essentially, just hit me up on Instagram if you're after one of those. In terms of pricing, those figures can be incredibly expensive. We are talking from the ranges of like 500 to 1,000 to even 2,000, just depending on the request. So Photo would like to know, how much money would it cost me for you to make me a symbiote suit Spider-Man from Spider-Man 2? So with these particular type of designs, I'm not really willing to take them on, the short answer. The reason why is they're just so incredibly time consuming and heavy in sculpt detail. So these two things I'm not exactly a fan on these days anyway. Anything that takes a huge amount of my time in terms of commissions really isn't worth any kind of amount of money that someone offers me. I need essentially quick turnarounds. And I know this sounds a little bit crappy, but if I can make a symbiote, for example, since that's something that I do regularly, those customs normally take me anywhere between 8 hours and 30 hours. That's like an average week. So depending on that, depends on cost. When it comes to the MCU-esque type designs and the Gamerverse, those designs are so intricate. I would like to get every little detail crammed in via sculpt. Dremeling all the bodies down, making it all perfect. And that's the problem, perfect, right? When you put this heavy toll on, it needs to look accurate to the game. It needs to look accurate to the MCU. That is mega burnout fuel, dude. And unfortunately, those type of designs, I hit brick wall of burnout time and time and time again, to the point where it completely puts me in this hole where I'm like, I can't do this, I don't want to do this, and you have all these negative thoughts. And I'm just not willing to do those for commissions anymore. Those aren't a scenario. No amount of money will get me to do them, unfortunately. Thanks for the question, dude. So Stephen here would like to know, have you ever thought about creating a symbiote man spider? I haven't, believe it or not. I've had this question so many times on Instagram. It just hasn't really crossed my mind. Man Spider is such an iconic design from the 90s animated series, Spider-Man. And it's pure nostalgia to me, so sticking a symbiote on it, I feel like he's already monstrous enough, you know? But I reckon that would be a pretty badass design. Maybe if I get commissioned it later on down the road, I could do it. That'd be pretty cool. But that, again, that would cost a lot of money to create, unfortunately. So guys, we're already up to the 12-minute mark on this video. We're about to hit 13 minutes, believe it or not. And if you look at the custom, I'm still wet blending it. That's how long this process takes, man. An airbrush would literally take 2 seconds and you would essentially get the same results. The only reason why I didn't use an airbrush is because you see how you've got that translucent flame effect going on in the middle? I couldn't have any paint splatter from the airbrush onto that because it would just set me back to square one. So this figure had to be hand painted. So Supreme Venom here says, I've been watching a lot of your customs, mainly Venom customs, and I've noticed that they are so repetitive. You always go with either Omega Red or Movie Venom, and to be frank, none of these molds do justice to the characters. If you are going to make a classic or modern Eddie Brock Venom, use bigger body molds. As Todd McFarlane said, what makes Venom better than Spider-Man is that he is big, monstrous mouth full of sharp, asymmetrical teeth, and that he is as big as the Hulk. In terms of Marvel Legends scaling, he should be at least Monster Venom size, with bigger arms and bigger legs. That would make a pretty good Venom that is as big as the Hulk as he should be. I've noticed now that you've moved on to Storm Collectibles. So if you ever decide to make a proper Venom, do it as big as the Immortal Hulk from the Marvel Select and Storm Collectibles Zangief, or even bigger considering he can shapeshift. So this is a long, I suppose, statement more so than a question. But I really wanted to get to it, and the reason why is, he's right. I use the movie Venom a lot. And I agree completely. Venom needs its own mold. Now, you've got to remember, and please take this on, I am a business. I am a toy maker. Cost and customers and all the bits and bobs in between. When someone reaches out to me on Instagram for a commission, they'll say, hey, can I get a Lee Price Venom on a movie Venom mold, please? And I'll be like, yep, no worries, that's 550 USD. Now, I would love to do the official comic book Lee Price Venom on Caliban, for example, because I feel like that is the perfect version of that character. His mold proportions, everything is nailed on that mold. You know, with a proper accurate head, that could make an excellent custom. But that's not what the customer requested. So therefore, that character, that Venom, is going to be made how the customer wanted it, not how I wanted it. And that's the biggest thing with this YouTube stuff, right? I'm not making them for me. I'm making them for my customers. I am restricted by the customer. And that's not a negative. It's just I create these things almost like an assembly line at this point. Hey, I would like this. Okay. And then, you know, for example, the Lee Price Venom. 4 hours later, boom, it's done. That's business. If it was me making Venom for myself, I wouldn't make it as big as the Select Hulk. I think that's ridiculous. That's more like the McGorgon Venom, I suppose, when he's in the Dark Avengers. If I was making Venom, I'd make the Marvel vs. Capcom 2 Venom, you know, with the blue or the orange, depending on if you like the Marvel vs. Capcom 1 game, Age of Heroes, the special edition Red Venom they call him, but he's more orange. So yeah, I suppose at the end of the day, everybody's Venom is different, and whichever one they prefer. You know, a lot of people love the Lethal Protector Venom, and they wouldn't want that on a Marvel Select. But if a customer comes along and says, hey, I would like a Lethal Protector Venom on the Marvel Select mold, is as much as I don't believe that is the correct mold for that character, I'm going to do it because it's a business. I make money. And if I say, hey, that's going to cost like $2,000 to make because that mold is incredibly hard to prep, and that customer goes, yeah, that's fine, I'm going to accept the commission and I'm going to create that custom for that customer in the way that that customer wants it. So as much as I appreciate this comment, dude, I really do, and I get where you're coming from, I am restricted by the business and what the customer's request is. You know, it is what it is, and I'm more than okay with that. You know, if people enjoy the YouTube videos, but it's getting repetitive, I feel you. Because, you know, every video I start with, hey, I'm using the movie Venom mold, and I'm creating this, this, and this, and essentially, I'm just repainting or slightly tweaking it in some way, shape, or form. And that's all I'm doing, you know. When I eventually get round to making my Venom for the Storm Collectibles, it won't be on a Zangief, dude. That is massive, you know. That's like Hulk size. I'm going to probably use a Dimitri and fuse different parts into it and make it a little bit more superhero proportions. But I appreciate the comment. I'm sorry that it's getting repetitive. I'm trying to mix things up, but there's limitations on these things. At the end of the day, it's, hey, I made this toy, guys. Woo! You know, like, this is how I made it. I hope it helps you in some way, shape, or form. I hope that you can learn from it. That's essentially why I make these things, you know. And at the end of the day, if one person out of the 300 or 1,000 or 16,000 or 18,000 people that watch the video, just one person says, oh, I'd really like to own that, and then that person hits me up on Instagram, then my job's done, man. It really is. But back to this custom. I'm never making this guy again, by the way. This guy took absolutely forever. Definitely wasn't worth the price tag that I asked for him and the amount of work and time and dedication that I already put into him, unfortunately. So, yeah, as much as I liked working on this guy, I wouldn't be making this one again. Sorry, guys. Unless it was for my own personal collection, but it'll be way, way later on down the road, you know, and I don't know how the hell I'd do that on a Storm base, to be honest. Motions here where do I buy? So hit me up on Instagram. Instagram is where I do all my business, and then I use PayPal, and we work out the payments there. And basically work out, whether you would like a payment plan, and then, we either go from there, or if you want to pay in full or part payment, all the details are kind of worked out on Instagram. That's just kind of like my chat service. I don't necessarily use Instagram for like social media. I really don't like social media. I'm very anti social media. I think, if it was up to me, I'd just turn the internet off. I'm one of those old minded people who believes that the 90s era was just better, just in general, less technology, less corruption. But yeah, so I pretty much only use the chat service on there, or I'll have it scheduled so that everything just uploads, but that's weeks in advance, and most of the time I'm not even active when it goes live. Just remember, if you're going to message me on Instagram, Instagram is literally like a business platform the way that I see it. I'm not, trying to be disrespectful or anything, but I'm not there to kind of be sociable. I'm there to make money. So, if you're reaching out to me, make sure that you approach me with a design, what you'd like me to create, have references, and then we can kind of go through it. So, 9675 would like to know, you should design figures instead of people at Hasbro. Ah, man, Hasbro. Gosh, I could talk about this for a long time. I really don't want to. It's all 3D modeling now, and 3D modeling doesn't interest me in the slightest. It's just they don't do the traditional hand sculpting anymore. They don't do the clay and use that to create molds, and then the molds get, multiplied and then you mass produce. They don't do that anymore. They use 3D renders, and then the 3D renders are made into molds, and then so on and so forth. But Hasbro, not many people are aware of this, but it's like revolving doors. Like, you'll be contracted to do a certain amount of work, and then you'll be kicked to the curb. They use and abuse their employees. I mean, they lay off thousands of people each year. It's ridiculous. It is not a company that I want to work for. I have no respect for Hasbro. It's so corporate, and you can tell since 2020 the amount of corporate influence that has destroyed their toys, in my opinion. So Dark Master would like to know, and I'm going to shorten this down a little bit. Man, have you ever thought about tackling Star Wars characters? There are characters that I think you would enjoy making. Love your videos, man. Well, I appreciate that, dude. I love creating the videos, even if they are getting repetitive and boring. I just have fun creating them. It's I don't know, it's just an enjoyable experience. So I'm glad that you like it too. If one person likes the video, I'm good, right? Like, it was time well spent. But anyway, onto your question. With Star Wars characters, so I keep up to date with Star Wars, but I'm not a fan of it. I don't enjoy it. I never have. And I don't know why. I'm more of a Warhammer 40k sci-fi type of dude, like that grim dark. And I feel like Star Wars is a little bit friendly, compared to the Warhammer 40k universe. Lightsabers are cool, cutting people in half and stuff, but they don't show much of that stuff. I mean, Darth Maul got cut in half, which is cool, but they don't have all like the blood and guts and all that sort of stuff, which kind of sucks, because if you were to introduce all that, I think it would be badass. But anyway, in terms of creating the characters, I like the bounty hunters because of their armored designs. They kind of remind me of Space Marines. But other than that, no, just that universe doesn't interest me in the slightest, unfortunately. Daniel would like to know, what brand of clear coat? I'm assuming gloss or semi-gloss. Poly spray for acrylic? Love your work, bro. Well, thank you, Daniel. So, I get this question a lot too. What brand of clear coat? So the brand that I use is Duplicolor, but most of my viewers are American, and a lot of the clear coats that I use, because I use so many different ones and I layer them all up too, that's how I'm able to get that finish. But basically, Duplicolor is like a really durable one that's good for most Marvel Legends type scenarios, but it leaves it ultra glossy. Now that works as symbiotes, that's fine. But, you know, with my Spider-Man stuff, I had to go different ways with it and maneuver around Duplicolor. It's a tricky question, man, because there's so many different ones and they all do different things. Heavy gloss is your best bet because that makes it the most durable. Semi-gloss is alright, and then everything below that you're probably going to have paint rub, right? You can go like satin and matte, but you have to be really, really careful. But it's a really hard question to ask because it just depends on the plastic type, right? If you're using Legends, Duplicolor's fine. But, you know, I've seen a lot of people use Mr. Hobby matte clear coats. And I imagine that would work for like head sculpts and flesh tones and stuff like that, but not necessarily full-fledged customs. I don't think you're going to get a high durability and then you're going to run into issues later. So Sigma Male would like to know, can you make a large Hulk custom using the pit bath? See, that would be awesome. I've seen so many people do that, right? Take the pit bath and ruin it with paint rub and create some dodgy custom Hulk. So what I'd like to do is actually make a legit one using the pit bath, but the likelihood of that is probably next to impossible. There just isn't many pit baths available anymore, and the ones that are available range from like $500 to $1,000. That's a lot of money for a base body, considering that we now have the loose collector hide, which is basically pit proportions. So I'd really love to use the pit, sorry, not the pit bath, the hide, but the only place to buy it right now for me is Big Bad Toy Store. And bro, with the conversion rate and the shipping fees and the tax, dude, it ends up being like $450 for the base body. That is just as much as buying a pit bath, like, you know what I mean? So, I don't know, maybe when I finally have enough money to purchase one, I might create one to sell. I don't know, the turnaround wouldn't be that high, but it'd be cool to make. A Venomized Hulk would be pretty badass. It's like more like the Absolute Carnage design for that cover art. I think that could be really cool, where he has the eyes going all the way through the back of the head. I created the head sculpt ages ago, and it's been sitting in my cupboard waiting to be worked on. I just need to add a body to it. I was going to use the Marvel Select, but it doesn't have enough range. I'd have to get in and really kind of modify it. Okay, moving on to the next comment. Drew has a question, or more of a request. He says, also, please make longer videos and more Hulk videos if you can. So Drew, I'd really love to make more Hulk customs, but again, coming back to that commissions, I don't really get commissioned to do Hulks, which kind of sucks, because I love the Hulk. He's one of my favorite characters, and he has so many different designs. But most of the time, man, people see Symbiote Seeker, and they go, oh, that dude can make some pretty good symbiotes. And that is essentially what I'm pigeonholed into time and time and time again. And I'm okay with it, you know, because at the end of the day, I make a lot of money doing this. This is my job. And I feel like I have mastered symbiotes. I'm probably the best in the world at creating symbiote customs. And that's not ego. I think that's more of a statement and a fact at this point. You know, I've spent the last 7 years doing this straight, you know, so I feel like I've honed these characters to an absolute T now. You know, you could sit there and say, oh, well, you only use the movie Venom. Yeah, true. But I have done designs like this many times, where I pull these bodies apart and create basically these Frankensteins and come up with these crazy designs. But I suppose that's each to their own, and everybody interprets these customs differently, and at the end of the day, you may think somebody else is just as good as me, if not better. Art, it's open to the perspective of that person. The could be people who watch my videos and go, God, this guy sucks. I know there's one guy that loves hitting the dislike button. Every single video has one dislike on it. If you're watching this video, bro, and you got this far, well, I just appreciate you watching. It means a lot. And I'm glad that you've been watching for so long. You know, you're my biggest fan, bro, because you've been there since day one. And whatever I did to piss you off, well, I'm sorry. But it is what it is, alright? So in terms of the longer videos, yeah, I've had that a few times. I'd like to make long video content, but they take a lot of editing. And I only have so much footage. So a little bit tricky as well to work around, especially with the kids, you know, at the moment, trying to format these things. It takes me about 8 to 40 hours editing a standard video that's like 6 minutes. So trying to cut that down and doing it off the cuff is a little bit harder because I have a 3-year-old who likes to run around and scream, and you're going to get that in the background. That's why the music overlaps a lot of these videos and so on and so forth. So I'll try, man. I'll try. I hope this video is something that you're looking forward to, you know, with it being a lot longer. I think we just cracked the 31-minute mark. So Patrick here says, how much for this Carnage? Now, the Carnage he's referring to is Absolute Carnage, the first Carnage that I created. So I'm not willing to recreate that custom exactly. So what I mean by that is, I'm happy to redo the design. I recently did it. I used a Batman figure from McFarlane, and it had these big creepy proportions. It was one of the baths, I think it's Darkest Night, and I essentially created Absolute Carnage using that mold. I'm not willing to recreate that original Absolute Carnage that I did. That figure took me 3.5 months every day for 8 hours. Like, I'm not willing to do that for a commission. If I was going to put a price tag on that, I couldn't, right? It's not possible. But for the one that I previously did, it was around 2,000 Australian dollars. It takes a long time to create an Absolute Carnage. It takes a long time to get these things paint rough free. It takes a long time to create customs, all the sculpt detail, all the engineering, all the paint applications, then the products that you use. These things add up. And Absolute Carnage is one of the most expensive customs that I create. It basically pushes everything off the table, and I have to focus on creating that and that alone. And what I mean by that is it takes top priority. So every other commission gets pushed down and this one gets moved to the top because it's just such a heavy workload. And if I don't focus all my attention on it and chip away at it day by day by day, it's not going to get finished. You know, a lot of these customs, whenever someone reaches out to me, I say, give me 1 to 2 years to create these things. I say that so that if I ever hit burnout, normally it takes me about 2 months, realistically. But if I hit burnout on a custom commission, dude, it can take me like 2 weeks to snap out of it. Sometimes it could take me, 2 months to snap out of it. Sometimes it can take me 6 months to snap out of it. Burnout in like an artist perspective is huge, man. You look at all the customizers that are now gone. They probably all hit burnout. They were exhausted from the hobby. They probably took on too many commissions and it just defeated them, That happens so often. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to a customizer and they've said, oh, it's going too overwhelming. I can't do this. I'm not willing to do that. I'm burnt out. I'm over the project. I'm not willing to move forward with it. And that's that, and then they never pick that thing up again. If you look at my reels, for example, look at how many projects just got stuck in limbo. And that happens because you hit burnout, man. Burnout is huge. Absolute Carnage, it runs into burnout every now and again. You have to kind of force your way through these things. When you got commissions, you got someone banking on you. They believe in you. They believe in your work. They appreciate your art. They're relying on you to create something awesome. So you have to do the job and, maneuver around those feelings and just give the customer a decent product. I hope that answers your question. And on that note, we are going to end the video. I appreciate everybody who managed to survive the 35 minutes of me rambling. And if you guys would like to see any of the work in progress and these videos super early, Patreon is the place to be. There is a link in the description below. First month is free. I hope to see you guys there. Thanks to all the lovely Patreons. I appreciate you greatly. All you supporters are amazing. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'll catch you guys on the next video. I hope you enjoyed. Bye.